as we evolve through our learnings and our capacities to understand, commune with spirit, and expand our minds. How is yoga, plant medicine, kindness, forgiveness serving us? How can we move through these things gracefully and keep our center? You're listening to Anatomy for Life with Crystal and Nicole, where we discuss the anatomy behind the most popular physical and spiritual practices so you can get the most out of these modalities on your healing journey. So welcome to our podcast today, Anatomy for Life. I'm Crystal.
I'm Nicole.
And today we have Jules Broadhead with us. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
I want to kind of scream a little bit. I've been asking Jules for this for a long time, and she's one of my very, very powerful, important teachers in my life. I've been there at some pivotal moments for me. I appreciate that.
Vice versa.
Thank you.
All teaching.
So we'll just go ahead and tune in quick so we can clear the mind. If you're in a place where it's safe to close your eyes, please do so. Otherwise, do what you need to be safe and focus on one exhale. All the way to the bottom, maybe even humming. Press your diaphragm up into your ribs. Pause gently and allow the inhale to come naturally. As if it's the first breath we're taking, begin again, and then allow for full exhale. Allow for full inhale. The power in this breath is just noticing the subtle differences as you do less and less on each breath. Starting to uncover that you are not the doer. Starting to relax into who you really are, which will be powerful and important for what we're talking about today. And then just feel your body pressing into the surface beneath you. Come back to your peripheral, your fingers, your toes. Know that whatever you need to access mentally, physically, or emotionally will be available to you when you need it. So you can just set that down for now and be here. Blink your eyes open. Be here. Welcome. Okay, so we've already been having some beautiful conversations, so this is just really exciting. Jules is always so articulate, and it's always so expansive for me to kind of co-create these things. I know me and Nicole have already been feeling that today.
Yes.
So I wonder how you want to be introduced, maybe with some of your official accomplishments and all those type of things, and then maybe take us into kind of your journey through that, like where you've been, where you're at right now.
Okay. So right now in my professional life, I say more as a mentor versus like a coach or a mindset guru. I work in the body, mind, and spirit connection, or higher self connection. And I teach people all aspects of their life. So how to flow with authenticity. Sometimes what people often experience is, like we talked about this earlier, is like it's one way or it's another. And I teach them to take the connection through the body, mind, and spirit, whether it be nutrition, hydration, sleep, whether they're working on an alternative spiritual experience, whether we're doing belief systems, mindset, and just to kind of find more clarity and authenticity in their life. And I train people on how to use different modalities, help them with their current, maybe their current clinical practice, their massage practice, their hypno practice, or maybe working with their clients already. I come in as a co-facilitator, and I just have fun all day long. I just get to have fun. It's always different. So someone who would come to work with me is someone who's just wanting to find more alignment and more connection from nutrition, hydration, sleep. Also working through clearing, traumas, depression, or letting go, divorce, life-changing, relocating, big decisions. Yeah, it's for everybody.
Yeah, and the way you hold space is, is just so very beautiful because I have been able to experience that. It's very allowing, it's very held, it's very accepting. It's just a beautiful quality of the divine feminine because I just from my personal experience, you can hold that in all of the allowance, but also it will be boundaries and it will be lessons. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you've never shied away from being like, so you were gone for a minute, so let's come back. So there are things to be learned here. Let's go get into that. Yeah. So it's definitely at that level of work. I think that you're just a powerful facilitator, like you said, for other facilitators, healers, and people, like people who are at a certain level. I think that is the space that, you know, you shine in. I don't know, maybe if you can speak to that. I don't know if you have desire to be in one space more than the other, but.
Well, on a weekly basis, so my background was originally, my family had owned this sports mall in Murray for, my dad originated the concept, built it, and we just recently sold the sports mall about 1.5 years ago. And I was exposed at a very young age from that experience. There's several thousand members. There's 50 years is a long time, almost 50 years to have a wellness facility. I mean, basically a place for families and all sorts of individuals to specialize in sports, nutrition, and healing their body, but also gaining strength, a place to find unity, connection. It was almost as if it's a pillar in the community for people. There's so many memories and families and people that spent their whole life, their career professionally there, people who learned valuable skills to help the world, and they've gone off to like huge, amazing things. So being exposed to alternative processes at a very young age, I'm talking like 8, 9, 10, and then going into competitive sports, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then having the training and then the alternative support with nutrition, with like the mindset, like having hypnotherapy at a very young age to help me with the cutting edge and to really like, do well and to excel and to exceed. Because I didn't grow up in a traditional way where I was, you know, oh, I'll do all the things that, you know, A to Z. I was kind of like, no, I'm interested in this and I'm interested in that. So I kind of had this little playground with my dad, and my mom was very supportive. And my family went between Utah and Las Vegas. So I got a really broad experience, and then we'd be in Utah again. And so it was like desert, mountains. Vegas was growing really fast, and you're just meeting all kinds of people and seeing all kinds of different things, and then coming to like it was not family oriented back then, and then coming more to a family environment. And I really appreciate that. Like, and we would, you know, if it was too hot in Vegas, we'd be in Utah. If it was too cold in Utah, we'd be in Vegas. Oh, wow. But it was really great. And as I got older and I was looking at things professionally, I definitely wanted to be in a way where I could help people. So yoga came very naturally to me. I've been teaching almost 18 years, specifically Bikram. I had a very long run with that. And I trained with Bikram Chaudhry and then multiple mentors. I'm not at the level of Brandy Lynn Berkman at all. Or Brandy, what's her last name now?
Yeah, Brandy Lynn.
Yeah. But I'm not, I mean, Brandy Lynn is amazing, but, you know, definitely have my own strength in the yoga. But I've learned discipline, timing, and the foresight with that. It's such a beautiful practice. And from there, I grew, I was growing professionally already. So I was able to implement the structure of a yoga class and the structure of what's happening with multiple students coming in with lots of issues. And then just training in alternative therapies, working with combo, working with plant medicines, training in other countries, going to different clinics, learning alternative health processes that are so vital and key, that are still making their way to the United States. There's a lot of awareness around it, but the structured awareness around it being everyday life is still making its way, you know, to the US. And so we're still yeah, let's do the hair flip.
My earring was like poking me in the head, so I was like, I should take it off.
I've been able to work and kind of in tandem. It kind of all came together at once. And so yeah,
I love that. But I'm glad, thank you for obliging us, because what I think is important to know is that some of the things that you take for granted as second nature, and some of the wisdom, you know, and some of the foundation that gets laid, want our listeners to hear that. You know, there's no substitute for having
a good education and the access, because I think, I mean, most children don't have the access to that kind of an education around the body, mind, spirit, everything from such a young age in an everyday setting. So it sounds like it was pretty natural for you to just move into that and learn more.
Yeah, most of my family, all of my siblings, my parents too, they're very well versed in whatever it is they're doing. They kind of lead in that field, or they specialize in it, and it's very specific. We have, you know, energy workers, massage therapists, body code workers. We have people who understand, you know, holding space, setting space, clearing. And my whole entire family is very talented. So I've been surrounded by really, really successful people in my own family, and then my parents, which was really great, and then just friends and family and community. And I just feel like also too, just when you lead with your heart, and I'm not afraid to try something new, and I'm not afraid to fail at it or look silly or be made wrong or speak my mind or, you know, really stand up for myself. And I've done that quite a bit in my profession and all along the way, through yoga, through plant medicine, through shamanism, through facilitating, through training, through holding, you know, boundaries with individuals, clients, other practitioners, people that I work with. I mean, I think that having clear boundaries, and also while you're learning, and then also learning what boundaries are over time, whether it be somebody who's coming to me for, you know, some personal, professional, or issue, you know, there's still boundaries on both sides. So, you know, yoga's taught me that. Yoga taught me how to hold space in my line of work. My religious endeavors taught me how to, you know, work with multiple people in very different mindsets, but also kind of one collective purpose. You know, leading retreats or holding like smaller group ceremonies, or whether I'm going to train somebody in their own practice or develop and train someone to utilize tools that I use in their own practice. There's a lot of ebb and flow with the love, the forgiveness, the boundaries, the ability to, you know, have integrity in like your scope of practice, you know, teaching people like, if you really don't know what you're doing in this space, you really work to your level of skill set. But also like you're free to discover and, you know.
Oh, I love that. I was actually just listening to something this week saying, what makes the divine feminine leader? And you know, in a lot of research, emotional research, you know, research between the divine feminine and masculine, you know, some quantifiable research and some just kind of research in our realm of practice that could be debated. But the reason why I bring it up is because you model it so well. I'm like giddy that we get to finally record and listen to you. And if you know, as you're weaving in and out of the things, one of the things that the research is saying is that the divine feminine leader, like a woman that is upheld as kind of a leader, is not because she excels at certain qualities. In fact, she's generally the woman that is most like the mean or average of the women that she facilitates for or is around. And the qualities is basically her ability of resilience, flow, and evolution, moving back and forth. So it could almost say, like at the end of some of the stuff I was reading, you could almost say it's as if she's more of an enigma, more of a contradiction. But in that, she's held up as a leader among the feminine, because there's some inherent quality there of everything that you're saying, the things you've been flowing through, to hold boundaries, but also allow learning in that space, right? And comeuppance, but also be true to integrity, but also be kind and forgiving. Right? Like it's so contradictory, but at the same time, it seems like it's a complete picture. It's a complete way of moving through the things. And that does speak to our point where we're talking about yoga instructors. And you were saying earlier, yoga instructors deserve some more compassion, some kindness, and something that we need to speak to. Most of our listeners are yoga instructors.
Yeah. One of the things, like, I'm all for you. I like yoga teachers, I say teachers. I say an instructor. I love the word instructor. And then I like to say, I'm going to create the world of teaching. I know in my line of work, when I'm working with a client, right, who's coming to me for combo, let's say, and they're going to have an experience on a physical level, and they filled out an intake form and they told me all the supplements and the pharmaceuticals or whatever they're doing and whatever their health consistency is. I have to clarify for myself, am I qualified to hold space for this person energetically? Number one, am I qualified on my knowledge of the body and on all of their physical conditions and even the medications? Am I qualified? Because I wouldn't want to misrepresent my skill set. And then going out and getting all of the training and traveling and spending all of the time and the hours away from my kids, and literally I'm over $100,000, okay, to do what I do in Kambo alone. Okay, now yoga teachers facilitate teaching to 30, 40, 50. If you're in larger retreats, if you're doing trainings for larger groups, 100, 200. I mean, I was in a training with 400 people when I took my training with Bikram. And that was, I think it was 12. I did 12 weeks, but nine weeks away from home all day long with yogis. And it was hatha yoga. So it was also like nutrition, hydration, sleep, the body, the mental tenacity, the constraints. So I think that people that are students of yoga don't understand really what a yoga teacher really does. And the world of teaching is to consistently develop yourself, consistently practice, consistently understand what are all the students in my class doing and dealing with. And I know that yoga teachers really do that. And it's obviously unseen in the background while they're coming half an hour or 45 minutes early, plus their 20 to 30 minute drive to the studio to then check everybody in, sell the packages, to then know the class they're teaching, to manage the heat, manage the props, manage the sanitation, probably even mop the floor afterwards, like mop their students' sweat off the floor, cold towels being just right, to and the emotion.
That's what I say, the emotion, the self-evolution, being able to show up in that needs to have a quantifiable price point.
It doesn't. And then staying afterwards to make sure that the laundry is folded and the shower hair is gone. And I mean, there are studios that have assistants to do that. The majority of them don't. Yeah. And if you're setting up your class, you're in charge of the environment, not just inside the room, but the desk environment, the bathrooms, all of it. You're running the studio. And so you are in business. You yourself are a brand inside of a studio that has a concept and a brand. So it's partnership. And that's one of the things that I teach people who come to work with me that I learned through yoga, is that we are creating a unique partnership that requires a lot of trust, creativity, and further development and accountability. So students must show up in that way, and it's got to be fostered through a studio, through ownership, through collective consciousness, not just I'm a student and I had a bad class, or this teacher said stretch when it should have been kick, or the studio wasn't hot, or I didn't like that she said this, or I brought my divorce to the mat, I got angry at my ex, my kid, whatever, my job, and I'm mad in class. And there's a lack of accountability in most studios. I teach in a lot of studios. And then also my family, having a health facility where thousands of people go a week, and there's over 250 classes, multiple professionals, you realize that people think that it's the yoga teacher's fault for this, and they want to bog down a studio with their complaint. Yeah. And they forget that there's wait, there were 35 other people having a different experience.
Yeah,
do all the yoga instructors out there feel...
I love you, babes. I got you. Call me. Oh,
do you all feel seen and heard now?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, you growing up with having that sports mom, and there's other, fitness classes and things going on. I mean, I've gone a million times to, power pump class or whatever, and I don't go in there and expect those teachers to hold space for me. I just expect them to know how to teach me to, push me to lift weights better or do something. It's such a different thing, and people don't realize that emotional and the amount of ongoing learning and training and getting yourself into the right place just to go and hold that space for other people, because that's what they expect when they come into your class.
Now, I trained in Hatha Yoga, the Bikram style. I chose Bikram Chaudhry to train with, but that also brought me yogis from all over the world, because at the time that I trained, 2008-9, he had there were probably 400 students, and then maybe 200 people on staff that came that contributed, and they were multiple studio owners, and we had a Nobel Peace Prize winner that taught us like science on the body and the connections that he has all over the world with people that are practicing different aspects of yoga. It was
what
incredible. Yeah, it was literally such an incredible experience, but at the same time it was also in Las Vegas, so it was kind of like flashy and it was really interesting. That was like a life-changing experience for me, and I've always drawn from there. I became very successful from that moment in what I do alternatively with plant medicines, but I knew that was so cutting edge for me to learn about how to be responsible for the experience of me and what I'm doing on my yoga mat. And I think that can get overrun at times because they're looking at memberships and how to keep the studio open and profitability and But I think and getting back to teaching and what is an instructor and a teacher, I think a teacher, we all are teaching each other. The teacher is still the student, and the teacher is still learning from the student, and we're all projecting and reflecting and seeing ourselves through other people, and they show up through the eyes that we have go out. So our filters, our judgments, our perceptions, our awareness, our knowledge, our stuff is out there like this, so it will reflect back. So how we view a particular person is really our opinion, our perspective of that person. They show up differently for everyone else.
Oh, I
so
love that.
yeah,
you know
and you learn it in a yoga.
And you learn it real quick.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, it was only a couple of years into my teaching when I started to notice a pattern or a revolving door of what kind of students started showing up for me. Because you'll start seeing, I'm getting all old people right now, or I'm getting all men, or I'm getting all people with these issues. And every single time, it's this beautiful opportunity / mirror connect. It was probably 5 or 6 years in, I started to notice that and then become vulnerable enough and also open enough with my learnings to be able to accept that as the teaching and the mirror.
Yeah.
And then once I did, holy cow, we had just had a kind of powerful conversation about an event like that, but we're always thinking that.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up.
It's also too is like your first teaching, your first year, the transition. And I love this topic about yoga because I am fiercely committed to fully develop like studios finding whatever they need to do with angel investors or another way to brand themselves, not through memberships and not through a class particular style or whatnot, but to develop very specific teachers that can cultivate mindset in the community and that actually cultivate a space for people to grow, but that has boundaries. Because one of the things I really learned in my Hatha practice was that and this could be everywhere, but Bikram says this in his book, and you know you can say whatever you want about him as an individual. He was a powerful teacher to me, and also the many teachers that he brings around, like Emmy Cleaves. I mean, wow. He says in the West we always want it fast and shorter and find a different way. I mean, we've even kind of bastardized the class. It was 90 minutes, now it's 60. Because everybody wants it faster. They need to get in and they need to get out. And it's like, well, what's wrong with spending 90 minutes in breath, connection, body, mind, spirit, moving through your body, maybe once or twice a week, working with the heat over no music, facing yourself in the mirror, listening to the meditation, connecting your body, your breath, and being accountable for your mindset and what you're saying to yourself in this like little mat. And the other thing is, to set a boundary with a student to be like, it is not okay to come late. Be prepared. This is like a dojo or a sacred vortex for the body.
Yes, I was wondering if you would go there.
Yeah, because I do not agree with that. And as a teacher, I used to make excuses at times. I'd be like, I'm running late, and I would run in and throw my mat down and be like, well, I'm a teacher, I'm in the back, you know. And there was a moment, this was about 7 years ago, because it was just accepted. It was allowed in certain studios. Well, traffic, this, that. No. Figure it out. If that's your studio, figure out, be causing the matter to shift that dynamic as a student, and don't leave it up to the teacher in the studio to be at the effect of what's going on for you. Like, I'm supposed to change the traffic pattern. You know, I'm supposed to, like, what can we do collectively? Right? Because you'd have people coming like 20 minutes into class late, and it's like, no, we love and accept everyone. No, that's not how things get done. And I am a loving, kind, forgiving, teacher, but we've got to have the discipline, and I get it, there's certain things that can happen with different studios, but there's something about holding a firm space for a student, even when they want to complain and barf up their nonsense. And it's almost like I've only had this happen twice, but it was like an email where they completely deconstructed the whole class and had all this feedback. And it was like, great. What gave you like the idea today that you could reiterate what your experience was in class and like eliminate 35 other people? Did those people exist?
and to double click on that, and I know you have taught this and agreed with this. It's almost as if the consumer population and mindset has been applied to the yoga, and then we forget, and I do want to go back and say yes with the discipline, yes with the boundary, yes when you've set the constraints. You can decide where to bend, right? I agree. You can have someone who's generally consistent and in their integrity. Yes, they're generally in their integrity and their practice, and something happens once, right? Yes. And that's fine. And we're not those teachers. But what you're saying is not just important, it's imperative. And what we've lost is the fact that a student forgets, and I have forgotten. Yeah, and I have been taught, and I have been humbled, but what I needed to be taught that is that if you're participating in a spiritual lineage and practice and whatnot, and you understand what it is, you're there to learn. And there's some play there, right? Because we know what happened to Bikram, so you can't go too far that direction.
No, we're not. But
you have to show up. You have to show up, both parties, in their sovereignty, but also in integrity. And I think that's when you said, there's got to be a way to take these spaces where owners and other people who have started them and come at them from business and consumerism, and the customer is always right, and we need to make money, and it's dealt with in the memberships. And then the yoga teachers who are coming at it from everything you just labeled, where this is our life's purpose, and you can't quantify the hundreds of thousands of dollars, time, and personal evolution.
Just one training
we put in. Yeah. To show up like that, and it's a sacred space, and I think in the West that's the conflict. It's coming together like this, and then Joel said to me, "It's a sacred dojo." And you know what? I'm a little hopeful.
Vortex.
Yes, I'm a little hopeful with that. What we're proliferating, and with some of these learnings and seeing how far it went the wrong way, because Joel's actually. You were my mentor and medicine facilitator through an experience just like we're actually talking about right now. And it was difficult to deconstruct those kind of things. Imagine how much more difficulty it is with what we're proliferating to students and the space we're creating if we don't speak to it. Yeah. So I have a little bit of hope.
Oh, I definitely do.
You know what I mean? Like, it's getting better.
Yeah, I think it's an awareness for student owners, because then a student owner goes in with all the hope. Sometimes they're a teacher themselves and they don't even know about business, and so then they hang on to every student as if you let that student go work that out and hold a firm boundary and let them know they're welcome and this is the standard, and like, no, I'm not going to take this 5-page vomit of energy that you decide to deconstruct this whole class and why this teacher is so awful. Like, no, our teacher is a student too, and we protect the teacher and not bog down the teacher with all of that, and just say, hey, like, it sounds like you've had some things to work out. No, there's 10 other teachers on the schedule. Maybe we can work out a different time for you to come. Learn from another teacher. Or what did you learn from this experience? Like, tell me what else are you learning versus what's gone wrong. Yeah, like, what have you learned?
And what did you also show up with intention for? Right? Like, how did you show up?
Yeah. Because one of the things I open with in class, and it's so not, and I want to be careful, like, not stepping over any of the controversy around Bikram. Yes, he was a very good teacher to me at a very perfect time in my life. Never step over any of that. I mean, I think there's so many gurus that have had a rise and fall. We got to remember people are human too. And your teacher might be going through something. Your teacher may be going through a divorce. Your teacher may have a child with a disability. Your teacher may have something going on with a teenage struggle at home, or just be trying to put a little more food on the table and need to go to the studio for some relief, and has a very strong background. I mean, I paid just for my Bikram training, the total cost from start to finish and all the workshops has been, and the training, certifications, payments, first aid, all of that, and the time away, I invested $25,000. So when you look at, you know, when people go, oh, well, it's $3,500 for this training, that's nothing. And this was 15 years ago when I invested that money, and I was a single mom. And I just knew I needed this experience of being a trained yoga teacher. Now, whether I was going to teach yoga and be on the schedule and be the awesome, cute teacher that everybody liked, you know, so of course you always want to be that one that has the coolest playlist and has all the cool things they say and the cute clothes and all of that. I mean, it's fun. It's fun.
If you're listening to this podcast and not watching it on our YouTube channel, Jules is gorgeous.
Thank you. But, you know, you want, and, you know, and I like to be sassy in the room and kind of like, you know, really walk in and just like create that juicy vibe for people because, you know, it's just like they've paid money for it and I know how expensive a drop-in is. And I know that students, I love you. You guys do the laundry. Holy cow, you have a mat for the towel and then the spraying the mat and then your clothes and then all the things and it's all sweaty and you clean up and the time away from your kids and all that. I get it. You know,
I feel it. Jules, I wonder if you'd be willing to share with us, like what have you done? How to get to this place of just so much compassion and seeing people? Like, what's your belief system surrounding just, you know, the interaction with other people, the compassion, the forgiveness,
I've had so many experiences. I mean, I'll just be straight.
What comes to your heart?
Well, okay. So I really believe. I really look at belief systems, and I know that for a long time, I was like operating in a belief system of a fear of being alone, and how am I going to take care of myself, and how am I going to survive? And I don't know where this came from. It was something very little. At a very young age, I just became aware of like, how do people survive? And so there was this core belief from a very young age, and a fear of like, I don't want to be alone, and worried that. And then also the paradigm and of like religion played into that, like being, you know, righteous enough or whatnot, or worthy, right? And not knowing like, hey, I'm just little. Of course I'm always worthy. Me being me is enough. And me being me is worthy. And even in all my lateness to yoga or in all my judgments of this, like that's okay. These are things to work through and move through. And so what I've done over the years is, when I have a client that comes to me, I look at the client or the practitioner that's learning from me to practice the tools, that the multiple modalities to enhance theirs. I know that person's coming to me to teach me. And I look at it as like, oh, here we go. I'm training again. Not I'm training them, but they're coming to me because I literally have declared for myself that I'm never alone. I'm always cared for. And I've had this belief for a very long time that I've been running a current in my yoga practice, in my breath, that I always have everything that I need. And then I was like, oh, darn it. I have everything I freaking want. And I would swear, but I'm not going to because we're in Linden, but I would swear normally. But like, I have everything I freaking want, you know, and I say exactly that. And I'm like, I'm always cared for. And so when you put that out in your work, when you put that out with people, and when you look at every student or client or individual, I'm like, wow, these people are teaching me something. And I know that I'm a student of life. So I'm constantly evolving and learning. And we talked about authenticity earlier. So for me, I clear. One of the big practices that I'm, if it's okay to share this, I work in transcendental meditation, and I've been a practitioner of that work for 10 years. And I work in Vedic science. So I have a Jyotish guru that I study with, and I meditate 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening. Now, I haven't been perfect in that, just like I'm not perfect in my yoga. And there's times when I'm really solid for like 2 good years, and then I'll fall off the wagon a little bit. And then I realize things in my life aren't going so well, and my perspectives feels like staticky. And then I go, oh my gosh, it's been 2 weeks and I haven't meditated. Oh, sit down and meditate. And then you find the rhythm again. So meditation has been really powerful for me in my growth. Prior to that, I was a Vipassana I did Vipassana meditation. It was difficult. I did an 11-day silent retreat a few times. And those were very difficult, sitting in the same position and waiting to launch. And then you launch once in like a year and you're chasing it. So you're like, hi, you know, so I kind of dropped that practice. Sorry, because 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes in the evening was so much easier, but
so much
also finding a teacher. So the way that I utilize all of this work and how I've gotten to this space is through obviously a lot of prayer. I believe in praying. Prayer is really key. And then also learning the nutritional aspects. So students and teachers, right? You may have a couple of my classes, I had functional medicine doctors, and I didn't even know that they were possibly coming late because their practice ran over or something. And it's a functional medicine doctor, and you're like kind of talking to them about being on time, you know, and some doctors run late, you know, and they're just not connecting, and they're just trying to get to the studio after a long day. So I've had my run-ins with people where you kind of approach it like, hey, you need to be on time to class. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Da, da, da. And then you realize like, oh, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. And so then when you kind of shift the question, like, well, what is the constraint that you might be dealing with? How can we best support you to make it to the yoga on time? So I really want you to get the whole benefit of this class. What's in the way? And then that's a different conversation. But I had to kind of approach it like, hey, I need you to be on time. This is my class, be on time.
Yeah.
And then you kind of have to go up against the constraint a little and play around with it. And that goes back to the belief system of how I'm afraid to be alone. No, I'm not, but I was dealing with that. And then like, how am I going to take care of myself? I just started attacking it. And I think as a teacher, yoga teacher, or as a practitioner in medicine, working with combo, working with plant medicines, working with practicing hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
You have to just go at it. You have to call to the surface what's there. And we talk about Ganesh, right? The elephant that rides on the back of a rat.
Yes.
That doesn't make sense, but it does, because Ganesh is the remover of all obstacles, and a rat can eat through steel. So if you think about it, you just have to, like, nobody was going to, Ganesh is riding on the rat. I mean, that doesn't make sense. Just attack it. So come at it, like call it to the surface, be ready to deal with what constraints might come with it, like somebody being upset, and then really look at that person and go, okay, what are they teaching me? Because the only way to grow is to move forward.
Yeah.
You have to call it all out.
Yeah.
Call it out. And that's where the combo, like I was telling you with my combo work,
Yes.
People throw up in combo.
Yes.
So oftentimes I might bring that like purge energy.
Yeah.
We're purging this. We are getting it out. And it's not even combo. It's like, you want a session? Let's have an energetic purge.
Yes.
Or,
absolutely.
And then sometimes I think,
but lean into it. Don't.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay to feel nervous and vulnerable and be sort of, if you're receiving this information, especially for the first time or at the beginnings of these learnings, and to feel the fear. That is good, because that is teaching you, if you're listening to Jules, that is some suspecting in the back of your brain that this is the direction you need to go. So you transmute that energy, right, of fear and apprehension to action.
Well, we've been talking about this a lot lately too, just because we're about to run a chakra course.
I think it's awesome.
Yes, and as we've been talking about it, it's the conversation is also, do you suspect you might have some blockages? And if so, that's the exact reason why you should do this. Like, you should make that your fear for not moving forward and getting that education. It's exactly what you're saying. You've got to lean into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
my verbal coach helped me. Like kind of with that construction, which is like, you need to pose the question. If you're going to do this work, you need to frame it up.
Paul Stamets talks about in mycelium, in the Fantastical Fungi, like this whole room has mycelium. Mycelium's in the air. Mycelium's being exchanged between me and you and Crystal. It's everywhere. The kids have mycelium, the dogs. Mycelium is mushrooms, and it turns the earth over. And this is the process of like putting back into the earth, is turning it over. So one of the principles that is very key to me is to turn things over. So I believe like that's giving it up to God as well, like turn it over. And I know myself to be like a god, a goddess. I know myself to be in that frequency. There's nothing that I've always been that. There's nothing that I have to prove or some level or something that I have to be doing to like earn it.
Well, we're all given that.
I'll turn over to the earth, and then I'll vibrate in frequency, another dimension, whatever. But I've always been that. So the concept of like that I would have to do anything, or that anything I'm doing is wrong, and then, or could be considered not as worthy. I'm like, that's not true. But if you can ever like do like a dieta for plants, and maybe not even do a psychedelic, but maybe you commune with cat's claw, or you do Bodhisattva, or maybe you do like Dak Tong or like Wimba or some sort of plant, because there's multiple plants that you can work with. When you go into that plant, you take out like cell phone and caffeine and sugar and whatever you do, all the things, right? The belt that just, all the stuff that make us
so quiet.
Yeah, it calms the body, then allows the body to take in the information, because we're not everything is spoken. There's the vibration through the gut, and when you alkaline, then all of a sudden you can walk out in nature, and like you can go to sleep, and all of a sudden you'll be having like very spiritual conversations with a plant, and you're like, whoa, I didn't know that was possible.
What's beautiful about what you said too is that once you start learning those deeper layers of purifying the temple and communing in that way, I approached other medicines as well after that while I was on dieta, and did not have a full understanding or realization, or not the wherewithal to connect to their spirit. So like, for instance, I've always done Sananga, and it's been a very visceral, physical experience for me.
Oh, how do you do with your lashes? I'm so careful with Sananga when ladies have lashes, because
you have to be so careful.
What?
You have to be so careful. Get it? The last time I did Sananga on dieta for the first time in like 20 years, the spirit spoke to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't know you had a spirit. And I mean, like, I knew that.
She's a flower, a white flower.
Something about that alkaline experience, about what you said, I was doing it for one purpose, and then other purposes, everything else I came in contact with during that time.
Dragon's blood's a good one too. Or Sangro de Grado.
Sangro, yes. Jules is brilliant at this, because you have NLP training.
Yes, I'm a master trainer of NLP, and I have
how do you frame? Yeah.
So I took a lot I've taken some of the NLP concepts and ditched them. I also, I could go on and on. My website goes through all of my training and learnings and whatnot, but not every book I've read either.
Yeah.
But NLP, my background in NLP actually started at Landmark Worldwide. I was an introduction leader for Landmark for 2 years, but I was like mold on the wall for 6 years at Landmark while I was drinking ayahuasca and traveling to Colombia and facilitating plant medicine journeys for people and utilizing the principles and what they call distinctions of levels of self through Landmark. Because at the time, I knew that ontologically, which is Landmark is a study of ontology, the science of word association. So I knew that words had power, and I did some communication courses. I've done every course that they offer besides the wisdom course, which I feel like plant medicines and training in other countries with those and shamanic work and yoga is the wisdom course. I could lead the wisdom course, but, I was living the wisdom course at the same time. So I knew I needed training, and I knew I needed to develop myself, and I knew I needed to stand up in front of other people in a seminar and make myself vulnerable and tell on myself what my nonsense was and what I dealt with, and really be asked the thought-provoking questions. So I spent 8 years there, 6 years as a participant, 2 years in development. And then I knew, okay, this is a little bit more kind of, the MLM of like the personal professional training and development world.
Yes.
And I knew I wanted to go bigger. So I was like, I want to work with Adriana and Tad James. And I had a really great woman that was a friend of mine who I've just watched just grow and grow and grow. Her name's Rebecca Diaz Avedo. And she had gone through the training, and I was like, if there was one person I wanted to work with, I knew I wanted to work with her. And so I took a one-on-one appointment with her, and I was like, yep, I'm doing that. So I did her introduction. We did 6 months study online. You gotta go.
No, you're good.
Okay. And then I jumped into the training with her, and I did her training over 2 years. And then I went into the NLP.
Yeah.
and with Adriana and Ted James. And so NLP, the construct of that is just to look at how we associate words, the meanings that we make, and the patterns.
Yeah.
And everything is basically a belief or a thought.
Because this was my question to you was, so with all of that, how do you frame that up for your clients when you're asking them in all those, all those ways that you want to push them and show up, and we're coming for the purge, right? And we're going to bring the things up because that's the power. How do you ask for that and set the framework?
It's good. You can Milton and meta model them. Usually you want to look at like the words that they're connecting, and you can always hear a belief system in play. It's there. It's kind of a current that runs through their body. You can see by reading eye patterns. You'll ask questions and you can see where, if you can map their eyes. And a lot of times you can ask questions to calibrate. And it becomes very easy just by asking certain questions that are just simple. Like, what's the color? Do you remember the color of your car? And then they may like go up or left, recalling or constructing. A lot of times in yoga, you'll see people looking down there because they're kinesthetic, or they're recalling because they're more auditory tonal. Oftentimes visual, comes into play. So I ask questions to understand people's sensories and the modalities that they're operating in. And to construct those, I may chunk them up and get them very abstract, or chunk them down and ask for more details and how specific. They may chunk down one way, or they may chunk laterally. Different types of details will give you how they construct their reality and how they utilize language. And then it's a whole body, mind, spirit thing in it, and also behavior. It's all on the mat. Words don't even exist at that point. Right. When they're moving. You can see exactly what is going on in someone's head. It's almost like you can see the thought bubble above their head. Mm-hmm.
And if they're ready for it or not, because there's a lot of times in facilitating where you realize this isn't a helpful construct or thing to push right now.
There's also a push-pull. You can tell with someone, like, if they have a push-pull or a rattling type of energy. I studied access bars, whatever access energy. And there's a really powerful woman named Julie Merwin who's a teacher.
Okay.
And she's been teaching, I think, 20 years in Utah, and she facilitates that. But she can teach you very quickly about the energies of rattling, push-pull, letting things go, and like knowing what's yours and what's not, how to be in a space. And that stuff is very intuitive. I think all yoga teachers have that ability when they're guiding in a class, once they can see the bodies moving. But you got to see the bodies first. But how you ask those questions very specifically is you just listen and you say, well, tell me more about that. And tell me more about that. Oh, okay. And then tell me about that. And you just get people flat. And when you can get someone flat, then you can use different techniques to kind of scramble the unconscious mind. There's processes like Cartesian coordinates that are very helpful. But there's people have like a glass ceiling and they don't realize it's there, and then they break through that one, and then there's another one, and then they break through that one, and then there's another one. And so it's constantly breaking this like glass ceiling that's there. They don't even realize.
I just get so giddy because this work is just...
I know. I'm like, you're a deep breath. I'm like, is it time for us to be done?
My gosh, I love it. So. Thanks for sharing some of that. Like, I want to get nerdy and go down those rabbit holes, but we're not going to.
It's like an entire podcast. I know some of these things. I'm like, I just want to ask a million questions.
But I do also want to know. You guys heard that Jules facilitates, right? A lot of things, and so we'll be sure that you can get in contact with her and link things in the notes and all of that. I'm also wondering, is there anything else on your heart that's been on your heart lately, or in the collective conscious, that are messages for us? Co-creations, teachings, learnings, anything there left unsaid?
I just really want, I think everyone in the world right now is going through something, whether it be on an emotional, physical, mental, financial, and I think it's so important that we, as a whole, as humanity, as we're paying more attention, putting our phones down, and getting on the mat, or getting somewhere where we can be out in nature, connecting, and really learning to let go of like fast fashion and fast foods and fast this and get it this way and that way, and be able to sit in silence and have meditation as a practice. That's so key with technology and what's going on in terms of we're the software. We are the actual technology, and we've got to learn to turn that. We're the phone, we got to learn to turn it around. And we have the technology. That's why we're here today, because we can podcast and video and do all the things. But to get out into your neighborhood and get out into your community and connect with other people. And always remember that when something's coming at you, that's yours to either do something with or not. And you can either choose to buy into a belief system that if it's real, or you can choose to push the boundary and learn more. So we have to keep educating ourselves. And sleep is so important. Yoga is important, breath, meditation, service work, and also a lot of compassion. I think being able to forgive people who've hurt us and thank them for the lesson, grow. And I think we learn all those things through plant medicines, through yoga, through breath work, through meditation, through being a mom and running a business and launching a podcast and teaching yoga and all the things, So definitely, I think more compassion, and I'm seeing more and more of a need. People are really going through it. So
I agree, and I love that too, because I'm seeing that huge need too. But I'm also seeing a lot of willing givers right now.
Yeah,
which is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that message, Jules. Thank you for opening, the channels and your wisdom and your heart to us today. It was beautiful. I really appreciate it. Like we said, we'll make sure you can get a hold of Jules. Do you want to say where to follow you or contact you real quick?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram as Jules, Juls Broadhead. And I also I've had this running account for a long time, Peace Love Combo. I know it's so yogi-ish of me. But I created Peace Love Combo. The peace in the creating, I stand for peaceful but very strong boundaries, loving people. Through peace you can you can access love, and through love you can create peace. And the modality where I became aware of that was, working with plant medicine, and Combo was the gateway for me to really launch that to the general public. So Combo is a heart opener. So Peace Love Combo, spelled with a K, Kambo. So not to be confused with Cambo. Combo.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll take you out on that. And then, like Nicole said, we have our chakra course up that's going to take you through my flow step-by-step process, what I have learned as far as education, Gnostic experience, lived experience, consistent practice, and then teaching it through each one of the chakra systems. And I fully back everything Jules said here. It's a co-creation. We are mirrors. If you feel called to that, we'll link that, and that'll be in the show notes as well. And maybe we'll just take you out with one of the very important of the 4 teachings of the Aquarian age, which Jules already said, which is understand the times, understand with compassion, or you will misunderstand the times.
Yeah.
So
holla.
Satnam. Satnam. Thank you.